Hey there, my name is Brighton. Welcome back to another midweek. I'm joined with Pastor Jay, who just
Hello.
gave this past Sunday's message, as we are in James chapter 2 now.
Right.
He gave the message, equal at the cross. So how did it feel to kick off chapter 2 here after
like
being in chapter 1?
We're making progress.
We're making progress.
But
We've seen it.
although there's really no rush to, hurry
Sure.
through the scriptures, but
Right.
it's good to see that sense of flow, I think, even in James's thoughts coming out of chapter 1 and the things he was addressing. And
Right.
that really continued into chapter 2 from what Pastor Rob had shared previously
Yes.
the week before about what does real religion look like in our acts of service and serving the most vulnerable.
Yep.
And then James goes on to address and here's another way that we tend to make judgments and
Yep.
fall down with respect to those very things. I do want to note though, as we start off,
Yep.
Brighton, that you and I are depicting very different approaches to winter as we get into this. So we obviously expect our office environments to feel different.
I do not like long sleeves very much, so no.
I just noted the contrast, but
Yep.
that's what makes these discussions exciting.
Is
and it gives them a little extra flair. So the contrast
is
in
our
in
outfit
viewpoints.
exciting to you? That's what we want to know.
Well, it just symbolizes that we're coming from different places,
Oh.
and that's what makes a rich approach to
Yep.
any topic. So
Yep.
let's continue on James 2.
All right. I
Having
hope you
noted
don't
it.
show favoritism for or against me because of the way that I dress right now.
And vice versa. Although,
Yes.
that is kind of a point,
Yeah.
because as we were discussing this briefly before starting the camera,
Yep.
we were talking about how, James is very particular in addressing the issue of favoritism from an economic angle.
Correct. Yep.
Which I think it's still appropriate for us, and we explored that a little bit on Sunday, and
Yep.
kind of the subtle pull that we have towards social status
Yep.
or perceived negative social status, and how we might respond to that even within the church. But you were making the point that favoritism actually can,
Oh yeah. It's more
look-
than just financial
right,
comparison.
and especially in our society today, as you were wisely saying, that can go a lot of different directions. I feel like the interviewer has become the interviewee.
I know. I was thinking that as well. I was like, wait. I was like, you're setting it up. I don't really have much
But-
more to say on that.
I want to give credit for that thought where it's due.
Thank you.
And I do think that's an interesting idea to explore, because very often we make those subtle judgments, and maybe they're not based on status, but they're based on how much do I feel like this person or this group of people is like me,
Yeah,
or
relates
reflects
to me or similar to myself.
is from my background,
Yep.
or is not, and
Yep.
then those become barriers.
Right.
And we can show all kinds of different favoritism in the way that we relate to people in that.
Right.
And I think we can make judgments about, and again, these are judgments we make really subtly.
Yes.
Like we may not even always realize we're doing it.
Right.
But unless we stop and consider it, we don't realize that we're thinking, well, that's a person that may never, they might not respond to the gospel. They're
Right.
not interested in hearing that. Or I'm not really interested in giving that person the gospel
Right.
either, because I
Oh,
think they
yeah.
deserve to be stuck wherever they're at, kind of a thing.
Yep.
So it is very convicting when we think about all the different ways that we categorize people, and then our responses are based on
Yeah.
the slots that we've put people in on
Yeah.
a whole host of different factors.
Right. So if we recognize it, or even if we don't recognize it, what are some steps or signs, or how can we recognize that favoritism within ourselves? Do you have any suggestions?
That's a challenging question.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we pull ourselves out of our normal thought process to recognize the
Right.
judgment that we're making and what we're doing? And
Right.
I think, as with anything else, it takes work, it takes effort. I think actually regular, time spent in the scripture and absorbing the scripture
Yeah.
and reflecting on those thoughts during the day is often what wakes us up to thought patterns we have that might not be aligned with the way that the Lord wants us to think about the people
Yeah.
around us. So I think that's one very important step, and one that we may not give enough attention to
Yep.
in our walk with Christ. I think also, the people that we include normally in our sphere,
Yeah.
do we include people that challenge us?
Oh.
I probably prefer not to.
Yeah.
And again, that's almost a form of social favoritism, if you will, because I just want the people around me that I'm most comfortable with.
Yep.
But there are people that I think challenge us, or we enjoy being around, that think differently from us. And that's also a good way, when we can travel with those people, I think that makes us view the world a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And a thought that might come to us, or something that's said that we might initially find a little bit distasteful or not in line with our way of thinking, may cause us to stop and consider, you know what, maybe there's something here I really need to think about in a new light.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so, I don't know, it's a really hard question. How do you get outside of your normal thought process and the patterns that you maybe grew up with, and that maybe your family instilled in you?
It's
and
comfortable
how you look at
to
people?
do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how do you begin to break out of that? And that's just part of the transforming work of walking with Christ. And I think it probably takes a long time to have Christ reshape those patterns of thought that we so often travel in.
So yeah, definitely getting in the scriptures, praying to God, reveal what is in me that is showing favoritism,
right,
in one way or the other,
right,
and then also, I think, having the desire to want to be convicted in that manner,
right,
which is also uncomfortable.
Absolutely, yeah, showing an
Conviction,
openness to God. God, yeah, please reveal to me where I'm not reflecting the kind of thoughts about other people that you would have me.
Yep.
When we recognize that we're valuing ourselves as a little bit superior to the people around us, that should be a flag that we are engaging in what James says, you're becoming judges with evil thoughts.
Yeah.
But the fact, again, of where we started in our own relationship with God, which was at 0 or less than 0, should remind us, that we're no better. Somehow we get in this idea, this bubble, that we're better than the people around us. And even as Christians, we can feel that we're better, morally superior. But we started at nothing. We had nothing to offer God. And hopefully that returns us back to a position of humility, and to recognize that we're no better than all the people around us that may not know God either.
Yeah.
And give us a sense of desire that their circumstance could change the way that ours has also.
Yep. Wow. Great thoughts.
Not easy.
And just going to the end of the particular passage that you preached on, towards verses 12 and 13. But right before that, James talks about keeping all of the law, but if you slip up in one area, you've actually broken the whole law.
That's encouraging, isn't it?
So very encouraging. That I mean, in school, I was happy with a 99%.
Right. You think that's pretty good?
I think that's pretty good. But James is saying, hey, 99%, still guilty.
You haven't upheld God's righteous standard.
Right.
And
so then it says in verses 12 and 13, to speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment.
Right.
And I just think that's so powerful.
Yeah, it really is. How do you encapsulate the deep meaning behind that thought, and God's mercy triumphing over judgment?
Yep.
And then the expectation that we as his people will reflect that same kind of heart to those around us.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to slip into judgment. But Christ taught his disciples and teaches us by extension that if we are to forgive, as one example of mercy, forgive the people who sin against us, because we have been forgiven a much greater debt that we owed to God. And man, that is tough to do.
And that's for all of us. Like, we're all breaking different amounts of the law, like James is saying.
Right.
But only Jesus is perfect. None of us have fully followed the law.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we need that mercy.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to be reminded that we need it. And if we're unwilling to extend that to other people, it says that we fundamentally don't understand the mercy that we've been given.
Yeah.
Which means that fundamentally maybe we're not actually connected to Christ.
Yeah.
All those ideas are so connected, but it goes against the core of our human nature to extend that grace to other people in the way that we need to.
Right.
But as we practice the law that gives freedom, which again, I love the oxymoron kind of in that statement, laws we don't normally think of as freeing.
Correct. Yep.
But the royal law that reflects God's heart does give freedom in a number of ways, and it frees us from acting according to our regular human impulse because we recognize the mercy that we've received.
Yep.
The flip side of that is, James says there is still a judgment that awaits that will not show mercy for those who have not been merciful. So God, help us to be people that understand and reflect your mercy to the people around us so that we are not found in that position.
Yep.
I mean, that should be a sobering call for all of us to live by.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for digging into this passage a little bit more with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully you were encouraged, give you some action items on what you are able to do and ask God to reveal to you in your life. So we just leave you with that. Have a great rest of your week.
Stay warm.
Stay warm.